Well, welcome back, guys, to the second week of our series where we are talking about what it means to live our faith in the world, but not be of the culture of the world. And last week, Steve, we talked about some of the character of a character in the Bible called Daniel and how that stood him in really good step for promotion, but also living in a fairly challenging environment where he'd been exiled to. Now, while he was living in that world, he had some pretty strong moral dilemmas. Like, oh my goodness, I've been told to do this. What do I do? So we're going to talk a little bit about handling some of those moral dilemmas in the workplace.
Yeah. And this is a really fascinating topic. And some theologians have said, like, this has been a struggle for 2,000 years. Mm-hmm. And part of it, the Bible has some different approaches. Like, there's not one right way. So you can find some verses that basically say the theme of separation. You know, First John talks about love not the world. James talks about friendship with the world is enmity with God. Like, there are some issues like, no, because of my faith, I won't do this. And some Christians are like that, as like their dominant position. But the difficulty is I'm actually called to be in there. Yeah. I can't just say, no, I'm not going to have anything to do with it. So then there's an other side, as well as separation, there's what's called identification. And it's like, I don't want to be the weird religious person who doesn't do what anyone else does. There's certain points, like I just need to fit in to actually help the message. So, you know, John 1:14, the word became flesh. Jesus identified with first century Jewish culture. Paul talks about this, you know, to the Jews, I became like a Jew to win the Jews. I become all things to all people so that all possible means I might win some. Even Luke 15, Jesus was criticized because he's too closely aligned with what religious. Right. So there's sometimes separation, sometimes identification, and then sometimes the third one people talk is transformation. Jesus talked the images of salt and light. Like, I'm in there, but I don't just stay there. I actually change the environment. Right. And so again, it's like, here's the classic challenge. There's not one right or wrong. It's almost issue by issue. Is this something I need to take a stand and go, no, I can't do this, sorry? Is this an issue like, no, I just need to I need to fit in so I'm not seen as weird and different? Or is this an issue like, man, is there a third way that I could be in there but actually change it? And you see all this in Daniel. So one level, you know, he was called to be in the system. So, you know, they were trained to be in the system. In fact, Daniel 1:7, the official gave them new names to identify to the extent, like, I actually have a name within this organization. And actually, even more incredibly, talks about he's called Belshazzar after the name of my God. Like, Daniel had to wear the name of a foreign god.
Yeah, crazy.
Well, that's pretty like, I'm in there. Yeah. But then at other times, he really like, nah. You know, the famous thing, Daniel 1, Daniel resolved not to defile himself. He's like, nah, there's lines I won't cross. Yeah. But there's also, there's some things he wouldn't do, but then there's some things he wouldn't not do. So later on, there's this edict, you're not allowed to pray. And it just says, Daniel 6, 3 times a day, he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. He's like, no, you don't tell me I can't pray to God. You know, and then at other times he transforms him, like that whole incident with the food. He's like, oh, just please test us for 10 days, see how it goes, you know, treat your servants in accordance with what you see. And so the interesting thing, Daniel 2, it just says, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. And it's like, if I'm going to navigate this, I can't be just like the naively go with everything, but I can't be this rude, abrasive person. Like, you know, I love the definition of tact, a careful way of speaking or behaving that avoids upsetting people. And it's like, welcome to the world of being in but not of. Like, with wisdom and tact, like, oh, everyone's going out drinking after work. Do I go or not? You know, maybe you're going out drinking, but then they're going to go clubbing. It's maybe like, no, I'll have one drink, but no, I won't go clubbing. And it's like issue by issue. Do I say no? Do I say yes? Do I offer another option? I know Christians in New Zealand, you know, it was their thing at their workplace. Every Christmas was a lot of alcohol, a lot of people get drunk. This guy's like, oh, I don't want to not be at the Christmas do, but I want to do that. And he realized, oh, actually they're all got families now. And so he said this thing, hey, rather than buying a whole lot of alcohol. What about we do a big family barbecue for you and and your kids? And everyone's like, oh, what a great idea. So it's kind of like, do I separate and say no? Do I identify and just go with it? Or do I think up a third way and transform? And it's like, welcome to the world of living not in church.
That's so good. I think as you mature as a believer, you start to have the freedom to be able to navigate through those different options. If I think about myself, university, even when I started my flying training, some pretty challenging environments, and I didn't have the maturity then to be able to go, hey, I think I could be with them, but not fully engage in what they're doing. So there was definitely times when I just separated myself out, and there might have been times when that was right, but I think there was other times when I actually cut myself off from great relationships because it was like, oh, he just doesn't engage in anything we do, so we'll leave him to the side. But I think maybe the more mature you get, you start to realize actually it might be a little uncomfortable for me to be there, but there's a relationship side to it, but I can draw a line. And I had a great conversation with someone the other day in church who's now training in the army, and he just said, man, brutal environment for a Christian, language, spend most of their pay packet just going out and getting drunk that night. And they'll say to him, will you come for us, for a drink? And he'll say, I'll come for a drink. And he goes and he's there and he's part of it. But there's a line that he's decided that's my line and I'm not prepared to go over it. And so I love that idea of perhaps we just got to look at it in a slightly broader lens. Do we separate? Do we actually identify? Or I guess the ultimate is transformation, but that's not always a reality, is it?
Yeah, and I think, we've talked a lot about like the alcohol, even drugs issue, but there's other things, like there's a thing with, just do a cash job, we won't do it officially. No, I don't do that. Or there's a thing called sweethearting, which is where employees give products or service away to their friends. Hey, I know you work for an aircon company. I need an aircon. How about you? Can you give me a cheap deal on it? And it's like, things like that, or sharing staff discounts. So there's a whole lot of ethical issues that you find yourself, it's truth telling. In sales, is it manipulation? Are you speaking the truth? Just like, it's interesting when you talk to people, church is one world, but most people spend most of their life in this other world, and like daily I'm faced with these issues. And like, that's why Daniel's such a great book as a go-to book, because it's like you see him navigating these things. And actually it's interesting, your point, someone said, at the start when he's younger he's a lot more ambivalent, and he seems to almost get a lot clearer or stronger later on. Like oh no, you tell me I can't pray, I'm just going to pray. At the start, I guess you can say he's earned some credibility, but you don't want to be the brash young person who can't, at the start, he's not like, I'm not eating that. He's like, hey, would this work if you gave me, a chance to do this and see how it goes and all that kind of thing. So it's kind of like, I just need to figure this stuff out issue by issue, day by day.
I think that's so good, because if we turn up to our workplaces and we come in hardline on every issue and we're completely unwilling to move, from day one, we're going to get labeled pretty quickly. But if we go back to previous week and we serve with excellence and honor and we create a reputation, then actually people are more likely to be open to our different viewpoints on things. And I actually remember for myself being at university, by the end of it, when people really knew me, they were much more willing to actually accept where I was on issues, because they'd got to know me and they'd seen my heart and my reputation. So the advice is kind of is maybe don't come in hardline on day one, but actually think through, okay, where do I separate? Where do I identify? Where do I seek?
It's interesting. There's another incident, Daniel, too. The kings issued this harsh command and just said Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact, because he said then he asked the king's officer, why did the king issue such a harsh decree? And then Daniel went and asked for time. He's really wrestling, man, I need to figure out how we're going to do this. I need to understand why he's asking for this. I need to try and figure out, is there another way? And it's like, I need to figure this out. And I wonder also from a Christian community, I need some other people in these similar worlds to talk about, hey, what did you do when they said this? How did you deal with this tax issue?
Yes.
What did you do about this way of treating staff?
Yeah.
And just to go, man, we want to be informed, but go, welcome to the world of being in but not of. Where am I going to say no? Where am I going to say yes? Where am I going to ask God for a download of some third way that no one's thought of before?
That's so good. And that's the beauty of faith, isn't it? It's like we don't have to just say this is the only way.
Yeah.
It's like we wrestle with our faith, we wrestle with our dilemmas, we there's a struggle, but we bring it to God and we actually let him give us wisdom for where we're at. We'll close it to an end for today, but hopefully some good stuff for you guys to think about and chew through, and no doubt you've all got some moral dilemmas or ethical things that you faced in your workplaces that you might want to be brave enough to share. And then I think this is where prayer is really powerful, praying for one another for wisdom on how to navigate those. But again, go back to Daniel, read how he came to his conclusions and what he did, and I think it's pretty inspiring. So have a great conversation around that.